So the popular question lately is, what the heck is going on with the market? Before we dive into that, I want to start with a little perspective. So last year, the median price in the Inner East Bay appreciated 18%. And from January through June of this year, we saw median price climb even further, hitting a peak price of $1.45 million. It's incredible. The median price in June was 16% higher than the median price in 2021. It was 37% higher than 2020 and a whopping 49.5% higher than the median price in 2019. But the one market constant that we can all count on is that just as prices go up, they also go down. With drastic increases in interest rates this year, home prices corrected almost as quickly as they climbed. The median sales price for the Inner East Bay for September was $1.23 million. That's a 16% decrease from the market peak in June. But here's a little perspective. That median sales price in September of this year is about equal to what the median sales price was in 2021. And it's still 16% higher than what the median price was in 2020 and 27% higher than the median price in 2019. That's still a whole lot of appreciation and equity. Now, as a potential seller, that still might not be comforting to hear. Just as it's hard to stomach liquidating stock when the stock market is down, it can be incredibly hard to move forward and forget about where home values were just a few months ago. I get it. But the reality is it's still a fantastic time to sell. Your home is still appreciated an incredible amount over your ownership. If you want to move closer to your grandkids and be an engaged grandparent in their lives, if you want to downsize your home because this large home that you have you no longer need, if you've inherited a home and you can't fathom renting it out, it's still a fantastic time to sell. Don't put your life on hold because of some perception about the market. If you do decide to sell, it's really important to move forward with realistic expectations and to have a little understanding of what buyers are having to deal with in today's market. A little empathy and insight into the buyer journey will take you a long way as a seller in this market. And don't worry, we will touch on those buyer realities later in this video. And sellers, here's the other thing. If you really must wait until prices get back to that June peak, then stay put or rent. With the incredible equity gains over the last several years and sky-high rental prices, you have options. Just know that the decision to not sell could be the right choice for many people, and it's not the right choice for others. Make sure that if you make that decision, you're looking long-term. It could be several years before prices get back to where they were. And lastly, if you convert your primary residence to a rental property, please educate yourself on your local municipality's rental laws. It's very important throughout the East Bay. And also remain aware of the fact that you may lose your primary residence tax-free gains exemption if too much time passes. Now, let's talk about the buyers. It is really hard to be a buyer in the market right now. You might think that the reduction in the median sales price has been a wonderful thing for buyers. They should be rejoicing in the streets. But hold up. With the cost of money going up, specifically interest rates going through the roof, it is harder and harder for buyers to get a foothold in the Inner East Bay real estate market. And sellers should remain aware of that as we move forward and negotiate in this market. The majority of people make a home purchase decision based off of the monthly payment that they will have to pay in order to purchase that home. As interest rates dropped below 3% last year, monthly payments dropped and buyers' budgets grew significantly. So a buyer searching in March with 20% down, a 3% interest rate, and a monthly housing budget of $7,000 per month could have afforded a home at $1.5 million. Today, with an interest rate around 6%, that same buyer can only afford a home up to $1.15 million. That is a 23% reduction in the buyer's purchasing power just since March. And median price has only come down 16%. So buyers are stretching their budgets further and further just to get into the Inner East Bay real estate market. They aren't getting discounts or finding quote-unquote deals out there. They're just trying to get their foot in the door. What buyers are bumping up against the most in today's market is seller expectations. There have been a number of homes that have received offers on their offer date only for the seller to graciously reject all offers because they did not reach that seller's elevated expectations. This really shows the most in the number of homes that have sold in recent months. The number of homes that sold in the Inner East Bay dropped 29% from June to September. In fact, the number of homes that sold in September is roughly equivalent to what we see sell in January of every year, which is the slowest month of any year. That drastic drop in the number of homes that sold has very little to do with the number of homes available for purchase and very much to do with the divide between sellers and buyers. So what is causing this divide? Essentially, it is that sellers want to net more from their home sale in order to move forward with selling their home. And buyers want to be able to reduce their monthly budget to something that is manageable for them to move forward with their home purchase. Put that way, it seems like they're on totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And the reality is that buyers and sellers need to think of creative ways in order to meet in the middle, which leads me to my next point, the seller buy down. When we think about mortgages and points in order to buy down the interest rate, we very heavily think of that on the buyer side of the equation. A buyer can pay points in order to lock in a lower rate. And when we think of seller credits, we very much think of that as a negative thing on the seller side. But the reality is a seller credit to buy down the buyer's interest rate can actually work in both the buyer's favor and the seller's favor. So here's a rough example of how a seller buy down works. Let's say there's a buyer in the market that is willing to offer $1.2 million with 20% down for a home. Their monthly payment would run roughly $7,200 a month. And the seller's net sales price would be that $1.2 million if no points were paid. Now, alternatively, let's say that buyer offered $1.3 million with 20% down and the seller paying 2 points to buy down the loan. In that case, the buyer's monthly payment is actually about $6,900, and the seller is going to net that 1.3 minus about 20,000 in points. So the seller's netting 1.28 million. In the end, the buyer's monthly payment is $300 less for 30 years for the life of the loan or as long as they lived there. And the seller is netting 80,000 more. Win-win. And buyers, you do want to create a win-win scenario because if the sellers do not receive offers that they are willing to accept, they will remove their home from the market and pursue other options. And if more and more sellers do that, inventory is going to drop drastically. And as inventory goes down, prices tend to go up. Creating a win-win scenario will bring more willing and able sellers into the market and create an environment where both buyers and sellers succeed. And sellers, now is the time for you to truly come to the table and negotiate with buyers. Have a little empathy around what it is that they are dealing with currently in the market. And be open to offers that are structured differently than we may have seen in the past several years. Being able to communicate with the buyer and having realistic expectations is going to be what allows you to be successful as a seller. Now, this is just a small bit of what's happening in the market. If there are topics that you want us to cover, please drop a comment. We want to tell you anything and everything that you need to know so that you can step forward into the real estate market with confidence.